he wrote it when he lived in Bristol, and he mentioned my mate's magic in it. He also mentioned me in it. He talks about a drawing duplication, about someone that played, that drew a guitar, and that was me. So he did that on me, and it at the time, I didn't really know that much about magic. It blew me away. He was just the scary guy that could read my mind. And there's also an incident in there that he ends up with a borrowed ring inside his sock, and he sort of said, "Oh, it's in my sock," and the guy went, "I don't really want to take it out of your sock," and he describes that as a lesson he learned from that. And that person he did that trick on was my friend JP. That book alone has got lots of sort of bits of history with me, so that's why I had to mention that as well.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Today's guest I've known a little while now, and those who know Mark Spellman will know that Mark will probably agree that Collin is very much one half of Mark Spellman now, other than Mark Spellman's wife, obviously. It's a throuple, if you will. Collin works very, very closely with Mark, and what those who see Mark may not know that Collin really does an awful lot behind the scenes. And he's also an incredibly, incredibly knowledgeable magician. He is a fantastic, fantastic cube magician. And although we've not even got into this list, if there's not a cube trick in there, then we will cancel the whole podcast going forward, because there just has to be at least one in there. He is one of the best cube thinkers and cube workers. So if you've not heard of him and you've not heard of what he does, he has a company with Kev G, who we've also done an episode with. I'm not sure whose has gone out first, so that might be a spoiler. But with Kev G, he's got a company called Refractor Project. And they've actually given a course to Alakazam Unlimited as well. So if you're an Unlimited member, you're going to see a lot more of Collin. So do check that out. Do check them out as well. But without further ado, today's guest is the wonderful, honestly, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in Magic, the wonderful Collin Claus. Hello, Collin. How are you?
Hello, G. That's quite an intro. Bless you. Thank you very much. I'm going red as we speak. I'm blushing.
But it's very true. You are, honestly, you help Mark so much. You really are his man in the chair, if we're quoting a superhero franchise.
Well, he's also helped me. I mean, over the years, he is that person that's kind of just, because he's been doing magic a lot longer than I have, he kind of taught me all the basics of tricks and even the magic business. So I've kind of skipped years of having to find out all this stuff myself. So that's where he's just been invaluable. And love him dearly. Absolutely couldn't do without him. And we talk to each other at least like 4 or 5 times a week. So and when Mark talks to us, you probably know, it goes on for a few hours, so that's but it's always really, and he's got so much knowledge and so much, just so many ideas. It just blows me away.
I don't want to give too many guesses, but I mean, even looking at you now, you have a Rubik's Cube t-shirt on as we're talking. Do you want to tell everyone what the name of your dog is?
Rubik's. Yes. That was my wife's idea. As soon as she said it, she regretted it, but I just jumped on and yes, it's Rubik's. It's Rubik's. So yeah.
So I think that's pointing us, all signs lead to Rubik's Cube there, but we won't say anything more. So if this is your first time listening, today we've invited Collin to our little desert island. When he's there, he's allowed to take 8 tricks, 1 book and 1 non-magic item that he uses for magic. Particulars, who's there, how big the island is, are there audiences, all that sort of stuff we really don't mind. This is basically the ultimate tricks that Collin could not live without. That being said, Collin, let's go to your desert island and discover what you put in position number 1.
So number one, before I say, so some of these choices might seem a bit egotistical because they're mine, but it's probably more of an insecurity. And the reason for that is that I am not very good at doing other people's tricks, or whenever I do them, I just don't think I do them justice. So I spend often years taking somebody else's idea and trying to make it my own. So that's this is why. So some of them will be my versions of a particular plot, but it's always somebody else's plot. So number one, and this is going to be the most obvious one, is the ambitious card. And the reason I've picked this such an obvious choice is because it's my perfect opener. I've been doing it for almost 22 years. I've done it in every type of situation, and I just know every single tiny moment of that trick. So if you don't know the ambitious card, the idea is that you put a card into the middle and it magically turns up on top. And there are about a million different versions. And I think Daryl's DVD was the first thing that inspired me to sort of look into that. But if you watch his routine, it goes on for about 15 minutes with that single plot, and how he makes it, and it's really riveting. When you watch him do it, every single moment is just amazing, which is the danger, oddly enough, of when I see other magicians do it. Some magicians are brilliant at it, but some magicians it can get a bit boring. You kind of go, yeah, okay, I've seen it now. But so it's really, really important to make that routine build as soon as you start. So my justification for choosing that particular trick is the fact that it helps me to establish myself as a magician. I get someone to pick a card, and I always let them pick the card face up, which is kind of disarming from the start. Normally, people pick from a face down deck, and you don't know what the card is. So immediately they're going, well, "This is a bit weird. I can choose any card," and then I get them to sign it. And then, once the card's lost in the middle, I do a kind of bit of a shuffle demonstration and do some fancy false cuts. And the reason I do that is, again, to establish myself as a magician, because they haven't seen me do anything. They've just seen me put a card in the middle. So by doing those flashy shuffles, people immediately know, oh, he's quite good at what he does, so he's worth watching. And I'm not one of these people that tries to hide his skills. I think for me, I'm happy to show people that I'm skilled, because I feel that helps the magic rather than hinders it, which I know there's two schools of thoughts there. Some people say hide the skill, other people say sort of emphasize it. So yeah, card goes in the middle, and then so once I've done the shuffles, I've shown that it's not on top, not near the top, and then boom, it's then on top. And then I do just a few more phases, and then my final phase is what I really love about it, and it's my main reason for doing it, is most people do an omni deck at the end of theirs. I just make the deck vanish. I make the whole deck vanish apart from their card. And for me, that's what makes that strong moment. And when I perform in a t-shirt, t-shirt and jeans, smart t-shirt, smart jeans sort of thing. So it makes that moment really impossible, because it's like everyone's going, where the hell's that deck gone? You've got no sleeves, no jacket, and it's gone. So that's my first choice. So I feel like I've babbled my way through that.
No, that's perfect. And I think it's probably the most popular card plot. It's certainly one that most people have a version of it.
Yeah. I think it's because there's so many different options and ways you can go with that. And people have come up with some amazing ways or amazing variations on that particular theme. So, yeah.
Do you do it in their hands when the deck disappears?
I get them to put, because at the end, I'm sort of holding the deck in between my hands. I get them to put their hand on top and underneath. and then squeeze down, and all that's left is that one card. And so they kind of feel the moment that it's happening, because your hands kind of just sort of seem to sort of glide down into each other. People often go, God, that feels weird. And so, yeah, it's a really, really strong moment. But sometimes I don't even bother. I just go, boom, it's gone. And it's just their face, because they've sort of seen the same thing again and again. And in fact, another phase is often that I used to do was the card in the mouth. Since COVID, I don't do the card in the mouth anymore, because it's just not, it just doesn't look hygienic. So I end up in, it ends up in my top pocket of my waistcoat rather than that. But when that deck vanishes, it's a moment that just gets people, and also allows me to move on to something else other than cards. It kind of says, that's the end of the card trick, now let me show you something else.
Yeah, very true. Great first choice. Very, very strong. And that leads us to your second position. So what did you put in your second spot?
So my second position, I'm a massive coin magic fan. I absolutely love coin magic. I studied card magic for years and then went on to coin magic. I tend to sort of jump around in genres. And so my next effect is three fly. It was David Davies who showed me this effect back in 2012, and I was blown away. He's really good and skilled doing it, and so I was blown away. And then when he showed me, I went, "Oh!" There was so many sort of areas in that effect that I thought, "Oh, I don't like that." And I think it's one of those plots that a lot of people have studied and a lot of people have tried to improve. But if you see someone that's really skilled doing it, those moments kind of fly over. But it's really important to make those moments not stand out like Dave did. So I think I spent about 2 or 3 years just looking into every single method that I could find before I even tried it out to anyone. I think I I go down that sort of rabbit hole because it's never good enough for me to show anyone, sort of thing. So and within three fly, there's two sort of schools of thoughts: gimmicked and ungimmicked. So without giving away any method, but my favourite version. So you're going to ask me for my favourite version, aren't you? So I know where this is going. So my favourite version, unfortunately, is egotistically is my own, because it's Schmetterling, which is butterfly in German, and it's on my project Ghost, which I released through Alakazam with a company that I had with a friend of mine, Simon Alexander, called the Alchemy Tree. And Pete's been really good in allowing us to release all our stuff through him. It was exclusively through him as well. But so that version again, it took me years, because I came up with this method. Ghost is all about a method of making a coin vanish, appear. There's loads of different uses. But using that technique, I came up with my perfect version that looks as clean as I think it should look. And that was my choice there. Now, I do also, the only problem with that version is that it's slightly maybe angle sensitive without giving any method away or anything like that. So it's not appropriate for any situation. I can't do it surrounded or anything like that. So if I was in any other situation, I would use a gimmick, because I find the gimmick versions are often more suitable for surrounded and walk around. Although I've seen people do really good versions ungimmicked as well. But yeah. So I've got another version which is also released through Alakazam. I released this thing called download called A Study in Three Fly, and that uses a gimmick. And that gimmick, I won't give it too much away, but it's a TUC gimmick. It's my kind of study into that gimmick because I think it was designed to make the perfect three flyer. But I've also got to quickly give an honourable mention because I've since found a better gimmick, and I can't tell you what it is, but all I'll say is Ronald Davies. So if you don't know who Ronald Davies is, he's one of the best coin gaff makers in the world. In fact, for me, he's the best, and he's an absolute legend and gentleman. And he showed me this idea. I went, oh my God. And I've given him a couple of tips on how I think it could be improved slightly. So he's sort of gone with that, but that gimmick. So if anyone's interested, get hold of Ronald, and that's just the perfect gimmick for three fly.
I was going to say, your version of three fly, is it made up of influences of other people's routines?
Very good question, actually. Yes, and I had a list ready. So yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. Honourable mention. So obviously, the original version I studied was Chris Kenner's, which was out of his book, Out of Control. And that was kind of the version that started all the crazes off. And also, Daryl has an amazing download on Penguin, which just, again, it's a study of ungimmicked three fly. Ponta the Smith has a brilliant version. Janny Goldsmith has a version called Dragonfly, which is amazing. And Craig Petty has a version on the Alakazam, I think it's the second Coin Academy, which is a really nice, it's kind of goes on, it's got so many phases to it, as Craig often does, but there's so many good things to study in that as well. But if you're doing the gimmicked, one of the first versions I saw that blew me away was, have you heard of Moritz Müller? He's this German coin guy, and he released it. I think he first did it, he was about 8 years old. Really sweet little kid, and he just does the most amazing three fly, and anyone who watched it and just open mouths because it was just flawless. But so aside from that, also Craig Petty, Nightshade, has loads of three flies on there on the Nightshade project. Gary Jones and Chris Congreve's Flying Tonight, and finally Kaino Harbottle has an effect called 3Y, which is also really good to study. So if anyone wants to study three fly, those are my recommendations.
Amazing. What a huge list of material that you've gone through. That's incredible.
Yes. But this is it. As I say, I study a project, a plot in so much depth. It's not even funny anymore. It's my wife will tell you that. She's just so sick of every plot that I sort of study and hearing about my enthusiasm with it. So anyway, so
that brings us on to your third item. What's in your third position?
So third, this one is it's more of a kind of, I have to say this because it's part of my history of magic, and it's Crazy Man's Handcuffs. I think it's one of the most perfect impromptu effects kind of thing, that if you just have two rubber bands, you can do. It's not even rubber bands, you could do this with several other things like hair bands and something like that. So and the plot is you hold two rubber bands between your fingers and thumbs, and they're locked together, and they just kind of melt apart, and the illusion is absolutely amazing. It's if done properly, it's brilliant. And again, lots of people have come up with different variations on this, but I think the original is still one of the best you can do. And the reason I mentioned it is because it was the first trick that I was taught. I was taught it back in 1998 by my friend Mike from Urban Magic. Now, Urban Magic might not mean much to some people, but Urban Magic they're actually mentioned in Darren's book, Absolute Magic. And they're two guys, they're originally three, but it's mainly two guys that go out and perform as a double act. And the things they used to do, they used to do an ambitious card, and the card used to go between the two, and they did this spoon bending routine and did the most amazing things. But they and myself were originally influenced by seeing Darren in the first place. So the idea is that this. So he taught me this rubber band trick back in Christmas of 1998. I then practiced it, and on New Year's Eve, I showed it to this random girl in this pub. And once I'd done it, I thought, oh, I think I got away with that. Looked up, and her face was just utter amazement. She couldn't believe it. And I went, I was with 2 rubber bands. And that was the moment I thought to myself, well, magic is for me. And that kind of led on to my magic journey. And that's my first ever trick. And I still think rubber bands, there's, again, so many things you can do with just 2 rubber bands. And I've got to do on my honourable mention, because my routine starts off with crazy mans and then goes off into a load of different things you can do with just rubber bands. So I've got to give an honourable mention to Joe Rindfleisch, because he's really the grandfather of rubber bands. There isn't a plot that he hasn't tackled and done amazingly well, like penetrations, vanishes, appearances, you name it, he's done it. So his most of my routine is kind of based around his methods.
Yeah, Joe Rindfleisch, I remember watching his Penguin lecture, and it's such a jam-packed lecture. There's so much information in there. But I remember there was an effect where he almost had like one band round the outside of a crossed band, and they were both different colours. And when he would turn his back, suddenly they switched places. And his whole thing was, if you look at it from the back, it looks like they're completely different. But if you look at the front, they're the same. It's just a wonderful trick. But yeah, absolutely. It's also, we always talk about tricks that you have in your knowledge bank. So this idea that if you were, let's say we really did put you on a desert island, but on your desert island, there was nothing but a Ryman's or a Staples if you're in America. And you could go into that, and just using the knowledge of different tricks and different methods, you could go in there and build an entire show from stuff that you just have in your brain. And the fact that you can get elastic bands anywhere in the world, and like you said, it doesn't have to be elastic bands, means that this really is a trick that you can do anywhere, anytime. It can get you out of trouble if you need it to. And like you said, if you've got knowledge of all these other methods, then you've got a solid 5-minute piece of magic, which is truly incredible and memorable, but doesn't really take up much space or much effort, really.
No, absolutely. As I say, with just 2 rubber bands, you can just blow people away. There's so many things you can do. And I think that genre has actually grown and grown, especially in the last 10 years. People have come up with some really interesting ways of doing these, even more penetrations and vanishes and appearances. And yeah.
Yep, very good choice. So looking at your list so far, we've got a card trick, a coin trick, and an elastic band trick. So it's going to be
no
interesting to see.
Yet.
No Rubik's Cubes yet. I like that the word "yet" was there. That was a prerequisite of what's coming. So that's all good. But that does bring us to your 4th position. So what's in your 4th spot?
So 4th position is it's my effect called Phoenix, but it's got a bit of a history to it, as most of my tricks have. So the original version was inspired by Mark Spellman, and Mark Spellman's got an effect called voodoo, which I know has been mentioned on this podcast before. So voodoo is Mark's version of Chicago opener, and what sets it apart is the fact that it's a burn that appears on the card rather than the card changing colour. So the idea is a person picks a card, it gets lost back in the deck, the deck is then spread again, and one card has changed colour, and that card then sorry, one card's changed color. The magician then takes that card, puts it down, and the spectator chooses another card that and says the card's going to change, spreads the deck again. None of the cards have changed, but all of a sudden the card that's been out in the open all along is the next chosen color, chosen card rather. So Mark's touch was the fact that it was a burn that appeared on the card, and it really elevates it from a card trick into something different. And he's been doing it for I think probably 30 years. And it's just, he knows every beat, every moment. And it's just, he can get so much mileage out of that effect. And I love the effect, the idea of the burn, but I didn't want to do Mark's trick because I thought, I just can't do it as well as Mark can. So I want to come up with my own version. So I came up with my own version, Phoenix. And in that one, it starts the same. Burn appears on the back of the card, but then the card goes in between the spectator's hand. I say I'm going to make the card vanish, and then they lift their hand up. The card is still there, but when they turn the card over, the card is blank. I then make the burn vanish off that blank card, and then finally I have a folded bit of paper which has been sort of on the table all along, take it, burn it, and it turns into the spectator's side card. So it's slightly different, but the reason I've chosen this is because this is the effect I do on every single table. I can do it in walk around as well, but I normally save it. If I'm doing a drinks reception, I'll do certain tricks at the drinks reception, and I'll save this one to do around the table, because I found that, especially in loud environments when there's lots of people talking, the moment there's one point in it which is part of the ritual, I burn my hand at the beginning, which is the sort of voodoo type of effect of the imaginary card then burning the actual card. As soon as I start to burn my hand with a lighter, even people that are talking turn around and go, what the hell is this guy doing? He's burning his hand. So, and all of a sudden people realize that it's not just a card trick, it's something different. And everyone starts to watch. And that's how I could kind of bring people in. That's my opening effect to a lot of people that haven't seen me in the drinks reception as well. The people that have already know that hopefully that I'm worth watching. But for those that haven't seen me, that kind of brings them in. And then after that, I can go back to the table and they'll go, yay, hopefully it's, they go, yes, we want to see more of your magic.
Great. What's interesting is, like you said, it's been mentioned a few times, Mark's version of this trick, and now we have your version of this trick. And it's strange that a trick that not many people have seen has ended up on people's ultimate list.
Exactly. It's never been put in print. I know Mark did a version of it at one of the Magic Circle competitions, where he put an extra touch on it, and where the burn had actually gone right through the card. So there was a hole through the card, which really kind of elevated the effect, if you know the method. But yeah, I think it's such a good plot in card magic. I like card tricks that are a bit different rather than just pick a card, find a card sort of thing.
Yeah, well, hopefully we can bully him into filming it for us at some point, and we'll get it on Unlimited or something. Or
for years he was going, yeah, that's a trick I'll never give away. You know, that's I do that everywhere. But I think he's now starting to think, well, maybe it's a trick I can just, I've done it. I've done it now. He's not so precious about it as he used to be.
Okay, well then I will definitely bully out of him. That's good. So that brings us over your halfway point into your fifth position. What's in your fifth spot?
So still not Rubik's Cubes, but I'm getting onto that. This is another card effect, but this is a card effect that I just love the plot. So this is is actually somebody else's routine. This is Guy Hollingworth's gambling routine, and it's in his book Drawing Room Deceptions. And the plot is that it's basically a gambling demo where he shows bottom deals, second deals, stacking the deck, but the kicker at the end is once he's shown you all these things, he turns over the deck and the whole deck is in new deck order, despite being shuffled and dealt out, dozens and dozens of times throughout the effect. So I just love the construction. So without going into method, you're kind of, as you're, which it's kind of got to be obvious for the fact that you're reconstructing the deck into new deck order as you're doing all the, as you're demonstrating all these slides. And I just thought that was just genius. And I came up with my own version, which I actually entered into the Magic Circle close-up competition, I think back in 2019. And I didn't win, but I did. What made me slightly happy is that was the most technical card trick that night. It was, there's so many, as I say, second deals, bottom deals. It's really technical. I've never released it either, so that's why I'm highlighting Guy Hollingworth's there rather than mine. But yeah, I think that's it. It's a genius plot. I've also got to mention David Davies has a version of that called A Visit from Mandelbrot, and it's a variation on Guy Hollingworth, but it's brilliant. It's definitely worth the study if you can get hold of it. It's not available in many places, but if it ever comes back up on Secondhand Magic, grab it.
Yeah, great. It's one of those routines as well. I'm not sure if Guy's was the instigator, but there's lots of those routines that have popped up in recent years. It's always a great ending as well. Now, I've never performed one for an audience. What is their reaction like? Do they go mad when they see it back in new deck order?
Well, I think you can't help but be impressed, but that's a good point. The trouble with gambling routines, and this is, I don't do this, I have to confess I don't do it out because I very rarely have a table. So it's not an effect I do a lot, but it's an effect that I would practice, especially on a desert island. I would try and make it my own because you're absolutely right. I think you've got to be someone like Guy Hollingworth's sort of English gentleman or someone like Richard Turner to kind of be able to pull that routine off really well and make it really exciting. But I would spend that time on the desert island trying to work out a way of making it me and making it entertaining.
It seems to be a common thread with this podcast now that each person would have one trick that they would just do so that they could practice it and get it really, really refined. Even I think it was Chris Harding's, he talks about the floating cane, and he says, I've never ever done it anywhere, but it's the most practiced trick that I have ever practiced. He says that he practices it constantly, but he's never been out and done it in public. But he just loves the plot that much that he wants to practice it. So, yeah, it seems to be like this weird thread that we're learning, that each magician has this one thing that maybe they haven't refined, that they really want to refine if they had that opportunity in that time.
And it's also that Zen meditation of just having something that is so complex that you have to sort of keep practicing it to kind of try and perfect it, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
When I perform at gigs, I look at effects that tick these 3 boxes. Is it super strong and powerful? Yes. Will it last with your spectators for a lifetime? Absolutely. And does it leave them with a souvenir that perfectly captures the moment of magic? If that all sounds exactly what you're after, look no further than the Liquid Forks. These forks have been custom designed to be able to bend right in front of your spectators' eyes. It's so easy to perform, it's so visual, and trust me, they will honestly keep this impossible object because they've seen it morph in front of their eyes. It literally does the impossible. Not only that, Liquid Forks comes with 50 of these forks in each pack, and it comes with the full Liquid Forks routine taught by the world famous David Penn. Not only that, we have a subscription service. If you guys love these forks and you get through them at your gigs, we now offer a monthly subscription where you get sent a box through every single month at a 10% reduced fee. Like I said, you guys are going to be loving these. You're going to be performing them every chance you can. Trust me, the reactions are second to none. So guys, head over to alakazam.co.uk, pick up a set of Liquid Forks. You will not regret it. Easy to do. Leaves them with a killer souvenir. And to be honest with you, it's not cards, it's not coins, it's not mentalism. It's something beyond belief. Check it out now, guys, the Liquid Forks.
Excellent. Well, that's another brilliant choice, and it does bring us on to your 6th position. So what's in your 6th spot?
So the 6th, now we're getting into the Rubik's Cube stuff. So from now on, it's just Rubik's Cube. So because I know from experience of this podcast is the fact that I can't just bring a Rubik's Cube. It's got to be the routine rather than the item itself. And so this is, I've called it Decepticon, and the version we've got on our projects is by Kev G, but it's really the idea is the plot kind of thing. So when I started off with Rubik's Cube Magic, most routines with a Rubik's Cube are, you use a paper bag and you use a cube. You can use gimmicks, and I won't expand on that anymore. But it's combined with a bag. I personally, I think it's amazing the things you can do with a bag, and it really helps you out. But I've always thought it doesn't really make sense with the item itself, the Rubik's Cube. So I've always tried to get away from the bag. And so because of that, I wanted a perfect Rubik's Cube effect that you can do with just one cube out in the open, and that's the only cube you're using. So the plot, I originally saw Takamiz do it. Now, Takamiz is a Japanese magician. He's considered the grandfather of Rubik's Cube magic. And the plot was the fact that a spectator could name a color, and from a mixed cube, you could solve that color. Very quickly, so not just sort of sitting there for ages getting to the one color. You just do it in within seconds. As another spectator could name another color, you would solve to that, and then somehow you would solve the cube super fast as well. So I think that is just such a perfect Rubik's Cube routine. So that's for me the perfect plot, and that's the first plot I came up with. I came up with my version. Some of it was inspired by another magician called Evgeny Karolin, but and he came up with the idea of doing the solving bits behind your back. So you didn't have to use a bag. You could do everything out here, just with that one cube. So that's the plot. And the version we put on our very first project was called Decepticon. And Kev took the plot and ran with it and just made it far more elaborate. Mine's a lot more simple. So he's got extra quick solves within that sort of routine. So actually, let me just explain where this routine came about. I came up with a method not that long after I'd sort of got into cube, started learning how to solve the cube. And I sent it to Kev because I just sort of got to know him. He looked at it and went, yeah, it's all right. and sort of ignored it. And so I carried on sort of perfecting the trick and doing it. And then 2 years later, I was chatting with Kev and I showed him the effect again. And he went, hang on, that was good. And he then suddenly, almost 2 years later, he saw the value of that effect. And that's when he came up with his version. And that's Decepticon.
Yeah, it's great. There are, I remember again referencing another Penguin lecture, the Takami's Penguin lecture. And that was
That's
again.
Effect on it, actually.
Yeah, it's such a superb lecture. But then when I see what you and Kev G have done with Rubik's Cube Magic as well, you do tend to squeeze everything you can without making it overly complicated. That's what I love about what you and Kev do with your cube magic, because sometimes you watch some cube magic and it's impressive, but it's involved, if that's the nicest way of putting it. But then I can watch what you and Kev G do, especially with a move that you have. It might be this move, I'm not sure, but you sent it to me in terms of being able to get to a certain colour at any point in
Yes, so that's what the 4-4-6 mix is. So the 4-4-6 mix allows you to get to any named color, then get to another named color, and then back to your solved cube in super fast time. Because it doesn't involve you having to solve the point to the color or solve the cube at any point. It's just learning. And the other advantage is it's just one set of moves that you have to learn. Sometimes other people have come up with similar versions, but they usually require two algorithms. This one just requires the one, and it just simplifies everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. Like, you're just squeezing so much out of so little. The fact that you can achieve that just with one move, or one set of moves rather, is phenomenal. It's great. It's so clever.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean that's what this is, because that was our starting point. From there, we kept coming up with more and more ideas, just based on that first idea. And we're now 8 volumes in with 4 more on the cards. So it just keeps going.
Superb. Well, you've already given us a spoiler alert now. So we know that your next one's going to be a Rubik's Cube trick, but where are you going to go with it? What's in your 7th position?
So the first thing my first reason for getting into the Rubik's Cube was an effect by Gregory Wilson called Rubicon. And I saw this, I think, back in 2016, 2017 or something like that. He had this effect where he came up on stage with 2 Rubik's Cubes. He let the spectator mix the mix a cube, and the other one, I think, was just behind him or something like that. And when and without any moves, he sort of takes the cube that the spectators mixed, and then you realise that they've matched the exact configuration of the Rubik's Cube to the one that he's got just behind him, or that he's been mixing behind his back or something like that. So it was essentially it's a matching effect. So every side matches, and then finally he then does a really quick wave and he solved his own cube. And that just blew me away. I thought that was such an interesting plot. And a lot of people have come up with their own versions. There are a lot of versions. And again, it's one of these things that are gimmicked versus non-gimmicked. I think, in my opinion, and I know that there are differing opinions with this, I think the gimmicked versions work perfectly for parlour and stage. I don't think they're necessarily always practical in a close-up situation, but I know people that do it really well. But I think you need the bag, maybe. So this is why I keep trying to eliminate the bag. And the ones that the non-gimmick ones often used lots of cubes. So you'd have at least 3 cubes, which then kind of muddies the effect up. So I came up with my own version of this, and Refractor, our project Refractor, which is it's all about ideally just using one cube to get a lot of magic out of it. So I wanted a version that I could do with one cube and one mini cube or something like that. So I didn't have to carry loads of cubes around with me. And I came up with a method of being able to mix the cube and the spectator having a say on how the cube is mixed, and again doing that matching effect. And the volume 3 is entirely dedicated to my solutions to do an impromptu matching effect. And the effect that I chose for, I think it's my 7th place, isn't it, is Parallel Minds. So that's one of the versions on there. And it's the version that Kev and I use all the time. And it's just so practical for the way we perform. And so that was, I'm still obsessed with the matching effects, still trying to improve it. But to date, that's the version that I use all the time when I'm out performing.
Great choice. And I've seen you do this. This is something that you do at conventions. So I think it was Magic Circle convention maybe last year or the year before. That's when I first saw you do this particular version. And you sent me the tutorial, the way to achieve it. And it was interesting. It was the first time I'd seen that approach to that routine, if that makes sense. Because normally it's if it's a gimmicked version, there tends to be something either shifting or moving or covering in some respects.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away. It's really difficult to talk about things without giving method away. And then with non-gimmicked versions, certainly, again, I think in the Penguin lecture, the one that I was on about earlier, there's a really clever solution for a non-gimmicked version in there. But like you said, it normally involves several Rubik's Cubes. And if not that, then a lot of remembering things in order to achieve situations. So exactly. I loved the idea that it felt completely free, like I was making those decisions and those choices, but somehow you still made it work. It was incredible.
And the Rubik's Cubes never go out of sight. They don't have to go into a bag or anything like that. They're always on display, so there's no, that's what I like about it. I like to keep I like the fact that everything's kept out in the open.
Yep, it's a superb choice, and it does bring us onto the last item. So what did you put in your 8th position?
So an 8th position is something else. It's actually by our latest member of our team is called Simon Jones, and he's kind of helped us actually take a lot of our ideas further. So he's kind of taken most of the ideas we've got on all the other volumes and just take it to that next level. And it's using something that I always wanted to and have started to use, which is cube solving algorithms. Now I use them a little bit throughout, but I think there's so much more that can be done, and people haven't really explored it because oddly enough, magicians are too lazy to learn how to solve the cube. They'd rather have a method that doesn't involve them actually having to solve the cube. And speed cubers that are really good at solving the cube aren't interested in doing magic with the cube. They just want to solve it. So but I think there is a point that you can use the cube solving algorithms because you can get to positions quite quickly. And in volume 5, Kev and I came up with a method of getting card revelations on a Rubik's Cube. So you'd have, say, a 4 of H, so 4 hearts or something like that, or a Jack of hearts, Jack of clubs. It does have certain limitations, of course, especially on a 3x3, because things like you have to choose letters, and a D is very hard to get. It tends to look like an O for a D and stuff like that. So, but but you got to these revelations all by using cube solving algorithms. and because that's for us, rather than have to remember or learn lots of new algorithms, which is good, but it's quite tedious. So if you could achieve that with algorithms that you're using anyway, you could get them quite quickly. So we came up with this with that method. Simon has since taken this further, and we've got a new volume coming out. And so the next effect that I've chosen is an effect by him called Oracle, and it's basically a double revelation. So a spectator picks, two spectators pick a card each, and the magician is then able to reveal the first person card, and then also the second person's card, but the second person's card is revealed super quick. It's just like in a wave, boom, the second card is revealed. And then Simon's worked out a way of getting back to solved super quick, or getting back to 2-1-1-2, which you might know about. For people that know about cube solving, 2-1-1-2 enables you to do a super quick solve at the end of the routine, which gives it that instant solve, which everyone loves to see at the end of any routine. It's just like, you shake the cube, and you shake a mixed cube, and it's solved. And so that it's Oracle by Simon Jones.
Great. That sounds really cool. That sounds really, really clever. Almost sounds like Chicago Opener, but with a cube.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, I mean, he's come up with loads of really interesting effects on that. Our original had 5 odd effects. Most of them are by Kev. He came up with sort of card under cube and things like that. Just really sort of card plots, but with a cube. And there is, people haven't sort of caught on to that, and it's probably because you do have to put in a bit of work to kind of work out the algorithms to get to the cards. So, but if for people that know how to solve the cube, especially people that use OLL, two-look PLL, and things like that, they'll know these algorithms anyway. So it's actually quite easy to learn how to get to all the revelations. But Simon's expanded on the revelations, he's expanded on the routines, and he's expanded on different concepts of being able to get back to solved cube, all from one position.
Great. Well, that's something that we can all look forward to. That's something that I'll certainly be looking out for. And it does bring us on to your 2 curveball items, because you've had 8 chances at tricks, but you're only allowed 1 each of these. So what did you go for your book?
Actually, can I just give two honourable mentions, actually, just because obviously I've chosen loads of cube effects. The other effects I would have said, if I'd been given just a couple of honourable mentions. One was Pat Page's Travelling Cash. Now, I don't do Extreme Burn, because I learned Travelling Cash about 22 years ago, and I've been doing that ever since. But I don't hardly do it anymore. I used to do it all the time, because it's the perfect trick that if you've just got a couple of seconds with them, with anyone, you change lottery tickets into money, it instantly got their attention. I think I heard Dean Levy say the other day that's his opening effect, and it kind of, I think it's too strong for an opening effect. I think you're right, it does get people's attention straight away, but that's why I use the ambitious card rather than this. But I hardly do it at all anymore, because these bloody polymer notes, when the money appears, it's kind of still folded, and so you're having to sort of get it out, spread it. It's not as nice looking as it used to be with the old notes. So I just had to mention that. And the other effect was Paul Wilson's Unholy Gathering, which is this where he takes a card and punches 4 holes in it, and then moves the holes into one corner. I've got my own version of that one. Again, we released it through Alakazam, called Unholy. And on my version, it's a bit more practical, I think, and you're not. There are some dodgy moves that I didn't like in the original so much, that I just moved the holes and moved them back to where they start. So it's almost a bit like people go, "Did I just see that? Did he really move the holes?" Rather than you ending up with an impossible object. But yeah, so that was I just had to give those as my honourable mentions.
Excellent. Very, very good choices. And what did you put in your book position?
So my book position, I had to put Guy Hollingworth's Drawing Room Deceptions. I love that book. It's one that I don't do that many effects from it, but I think there's so many effects that I want to study, and there's so many movies that sort of puts his versions of the bottom deal and different ways of shuffling and different shifts on there that I think that book alone is a lifetime of study. But again, I just wanted to give a couple of honourable mentions for books that I kind of considered. Basically, Absolute Magic, because by Darren Brown. It's just, I love that book. But he wrote it when he lived in Bristol, and he mentioned my mate's magic in it. He also mentions me in it. He talks about a drawing duplication, about someone that played, that drew a guitar, and that was me. So he did that on me, and at the time I didn't really know that much about magic. It blew me away. He was just the scary that guy that could read my mind. And there's also an incident in there that where somebody had lost. This is it. He ends up with a borrowed ring inside his sock, and the guy said, and he sort of said, "Oh, it's in my sock," and the guy went, "I don't really want to take it out of your sock," and he describes that as a lesson he learned from that, and that person he did that trick on was my friend JP. So that book alone has got lots of sort of bits of history with me. So that's why I had to mention that as well. Also, quickly, another book is Parameters by Kev G, which is I really wanted to take that on there out there, because that's got some lovely card tricks and some lovely thoughts on Rubik's Cube magic and everything else. So that would be my. Oh, actually, sorry, one more. Sorry, going on. Mark Spellman is writing his book, and I know he's been writing it for years. But when that comes out, that will probably be the book that I take, because that will have so much knowledge and so many great effects in it. He shows me what effects that he's going to put in there all the time, and I go, "Oh, that's genius!" So that is a book that, even though he hasn't written it, when he has written it, I think it would be a really, really amazing book for any magician or mentalist.
Great, superb choices. And yeah, I can't wait for Mark's. I've no doubt it's going to be phenomenal, everything that Mark does. But Guy Hollingsworth, I think we've had Drawing Room Deceptions either once or twice on the pod. Yeah. So, and I'm sure we'll have it again more in the future.
It's just, it's like for me, it's like a better version of The Expert at the Card Table. And I know it's probably blasphemy to say that, but I love the drawings that he does in there. And for me, the tricks in there are so strong. The moves, the way he describes the moves, are so strong as well.
Excellent. So that brings us on to your item. What did you put in your item position?
So I wanted to say phone, I wanted to say music, but they've all been taken. And in fact, my choice, I heard, it was funny, I was listening to Dean Levy's yesterday, and he mentioned kind of the thing that I wanted to put in there, and I think it's probably been mentioned before, but he mentioned his suit, didn't he? So mine is actually my trousers. Because I work in jeans and T-shirts, everything has to fit on me, and everything has to fit in my jeans, because I've got no jacket to put stuff in. So my jeans have been tailor-made to accommodate cards, spoons, pens, coins, other bits, ways of ditching stuff, savants, all in a pair of jeans that look totally normal. And I've spent, I think, almost 20 years designing slowly, version by version, that perfect, those perfect pair of jeans that basically accommodates everything. So that's my choice.
Yeah, great. I think we've had Harry Nardi mentioned it. Dean Levy mentioned it. I think Phil Tilsden on Stranded with a Stranger mentioned it as well. He mentioned it in respect of sleeving, though, which I thought was quite clever. In a jacket, which I'd never considered before. But yeah, it's great, and it's great that you've almost created your own set of apparatus to achieve so much from it.
Well, it's what most people comment on when I perform. Everyone, the one of the first things they say, what? And it's because when the deck vanishes, they're going, "You're just in a pair of jeans and t-shirt. Where's that deck going?" It just doesn't make any sense. And for me, it really elevates what I do because of the way I perform. And I try and look, because Dean Levy, was talking about the differences in some. You need to look smart for an occasion. You don't always want to wear a suit, and I think that's very true. But I think also is that I dress this way. It establishes me as a magician rather than one of the guests, sort of thing. So it's kind of sets me apart without because my attire is quite casual. It's not like wearing a suit when everyone else is in that sort of casual attire. But yeah, there's so I like the idea, the fact that I look different enough from other people, but people instantly know that I'm there as a performer rather than as a guest.
Yep, great choice. A really nice list of tricks as well. Some cards in there. We've got some coins in there. We've got some cubes in there. Who else needs anything other than that? But if people want to find out more about you, Collin, where can they go?
My website is street-magic.co.uk. I've got a YouTube channel as well, which I don't know. I never know my addresses, which is really terrible. I've got my Instagram's got lots of sort of little tricks on it as well, and my YouTube's got there's a YouTube video that I've got which is me doing the pea in the shell. Somehow it's got 16,000 views. It's the only video on my channel that's got that many views, but it just keeps getting more. It just keeps getting more and more and more. I just did it a few years ago, but for some reason, that's the video that's captured everyone's sort of attention.
And if people want to find out more about the Refractor project, where can they go for that?
That is, refractor.co.uk. And I'm sure Kev's mentioned that as well. And that's where I've got, we've got lots of things. And if you want to, we're not going anymore, but the Alchemy Tree, there's several of my projects, or mine and Simon and mine's projects on Alakazam's website.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Collin, for sharing your list with us.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It was a real pleasure sort of collating that list as well. Absolutely loved it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, remember, if you are listening to this and you want to be a part of this, we do have a mid-week special now. It's called Stranded with a Stranger, and it's your chance to send in your lists. So, if you want to be a part of that, then send your list of 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item. Please give us a little synopsis about you and who you are. Send that to sales@alakazam.co.uk, but put the subject title, My Desert Island List. That way it comes through to me, and we can record one. Those will be going out every Monday, and the normal show, which is this one, will be going out every Friday. So please send those in. The more of those we get, the more episodes that we can create. But that being said, please do go check out Collin, please do go check out the Refractor Project, because there is some phenomenal material there. And if you've ever wanted to solve the cube, but you haven't, naughty, then go to Alakazam Unlimited. We do have a course that was very kindly donated to us by Collin and Kev G. Collin is on the beginning parts of each of those lessons, so check it out. But they've gone at it from a magician's perspective. So they thought about magicians, how magicians think and process, and then they've created this course based on that. So people like me, who maybe years ago learnt it in a more complicated way, this is a much simpler, much more approachable way. And the fact that they've done it in bite-sized chunks means that you can learn the first bit, process that for 2 weeks, then the next lesson will come along. You'll process that for 2 weeks, and then the next one comes along. So it's more than approachable for anyone to solve a Rubik's Cube. But with that being said, thank you all very much, and we'll speak to you again soon on another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Bye-bye.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.